you're here to talk about cancel culture generally. I don't know if you want to kick it off, talk about your origin story a little bit, how you got into doing comics. I read that one of your early inspirations was Superman, 1978 Superman, but I'm sure
every aspect of my life, Superman has led the way. Yeah. 100%. No, I started working in comics in the early 1990s. And ended up working at DC Comics for about 20 years. My first book was called CyberFrog. I drew that when I was a teenager into my early 20s. And then I started working at DC Comics. It was interesting. It's like everybody was liberal. Everybody was lefty, but it wasn't toxic. You could
were
survive.
A lefty? Did you identify as a lefty?
No, I'm a McCarthyite conservative. I want to fire communists out of a cannon into a brick wall, ASAP. So we might differ about that. Like, you might prefer to use a catapult. I'm like, no, a cannon into a brick wall. I got along with everybody anyway. Because I'm good like that. I'm able to keep on an even keel and deal with crazy people. But I was drawing for a long time. I was doing Green Lantern. I was doing Flash. And then all of a sudden, Barack Obama was elected president and everything kind of changed. Everybody was rejoicing and very, very happy. And I was happy that they were happy. I was happy in their victory. I was like, hooray for you. It'll be my turn next, right? Like, I'll get to elect a president one day. And they said, sure. Sure. You had Bush, and I said, I know. So Trump came around. And at first I thought Trump was kind of cartoonish. I thought he was a charming buffoon and all of those things. But I started to listen to what he said, and I really liked a lot of what he said. I believed in Trumpism. Didn't think he would get elected. I thought it was a long shot, just like everybody else. I was pretty sure he would not win. But he did win. And when he won, and we voted for him in this house, and I was so happy. I wore a MAGA hat on Twitter before that was the equivalent of a swastika socially. It was a MAGA hat. And all hell descended upon me, like nothing I've ever seen before. And I've seen hell, but this was all hell. And all of my peers turned on me instantly. I started to receive these notes from people who I didn't even really know, who worked in comics. And they were saying things like, how could you do this to the gays in your community? How could you do it? How could you vote?
So this is in 2016. This is
promptly right after the election. It was just, and if at the time I would like search my name, and just see like what people were like other pros who I'd never met, and editors were like, "Did you see Ethan Van Sciver?" Yeah, it's really disappointing. It's very disappointing.
They needed somebody to blame right away. They could not handle that an outsider won.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, there are some Republicans in comics, but we're few and far between. We all know each other. I had a little Facebook group called Comic Cons. Get it? Conservatives. And they're only like 15 people in there, and we were all just, in various stages of, terror at all times, during the first year of Trump's presidency.
Terror, what? You thought you'd get fired?
Well, yes. They actually editors overtly said, those of you who voted for Trump, we're going to remember you. We're going to remember who you are. So it was very strange.
That's intense.
Yeah. So anyway, a group of them got together. And first of all, they went back through my entire timeline and found instances where I made jokes about Hitler.
This is on Twitter?
Twitter, all social media. There's a whole whisper network in comics. I think there is in stand-up comedy too. I'm pretty sure.
A lot of whispering. A lot of whisper about your girl here, but I guess I've gotten used to it.
Get ready for some more. And so when people find out you had me on. All of this stuff happened. They started to spread this rumor that I was a Nazi. And at the time, that meant something. At the time, 5 years ago, well, I'm not a white supremacist. That's not, I don't hold those views. I'm I grew up in New Jersey. It's like, I'm that's not who I am, and it's like, oh, that's what that's what a white supremacist would say, or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure if what would a white supremacist say if asked if you were a white supremacist.
I've yet to meet one, and I've met a lot of people, so it's a mystery to me.
Yeah, I think that my impression is that they would say, hell yeah. It's like, that's what I think they would say, because they're supremacists. They would be proud of being white and all of this stuff.
Did you also get flack for using in your like comics, like Nazi imagery? Was that something that you got shit for?
Yeah. Of course. Why wouldn't you use Nazi imagery in comics when you're trying
to draw villains? That's a lot of inspiration right there.
Yeah, but doesn't that sound bad? Did you use Nazi imagery? He uses Nazi imagery. Well, yes, when I'm doing a story about an alien Nazi.
Yeah, you're not covering your bedroom in it. You're not like covering your cubicle at work with it.
No, not that anyone knew. There'd be no proof of that. So anyway, yeah, I did, of course. And I actually, because I was doing this character called Sinestro, who is Green Lantern's arch enemy, I modeled him after Hitler, Stalin. I altered his look to sort of be arrogant and cold and impassive and brutal and just without emotion, lots of bags and lines on his face. And I even gave him a little armband with a symbol on it. It's like it was meant to evoke Hitler. And I'd say that in interviews. It's like, yes, that is who we're modeling this character after, because he was silly before. You're not laughing now, are you? And it makes Green Lantern a much more important and necessary organization, the Green Lantern Corps. So, the character rocketed in popularity, much to DC's pleasure. I mean, Sinestro became the second most popular villain next to the Joker at DC Comics. And then they made a movie and they ruined it all. Did you see that movie?
No, but it's on my list of, I've heard a lot of people say the same thing. Yeah. Very angry.
They destroyed everything I built.
Oh.
Do you hear me, Ryan Reynolds?
Light a candle, dim the lights.
Yeah.
You destroyed everything.
So I don't know. Do you think that's bad? How do you feel about that, Chrissy? What do you think about using Nazi imagery in your fiction?
That sounds fine, especially when your job is to create and draw villains. Like, that's off the top of my head one of the top 3 villains.
Who are the other 2? Satan,
Fauci. Yeah,
Fauci. I mean, yes,
they change every year.
Absolutely. There's Satan, Fauci, and then Hitler, I guess. I think that's in order.
I had no idea the comic industry, and I have to like make sure I don't like, because it's comic and comedy sound so similar, but in the comic book industry, that it was so woke and so left leaning. Like, I know that comedy is that way. I know that most of Hollywood is 100% that way. Music, yes, also, but I had no idea that it was the same in comic books, and that they were so vicious, like so just outspokenly like vicious, like not worried about anyone would think of them for just going after those of you who are Republican. That's really wild.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's been said, that comic book professionals are literally the worst people on the face of the earth, and they are. I mean, they really are bad people. I don't even know how to express to you how vicious they are in such a low stakes industry. I mean, at least in comedy, in stand-up comedy, you're going to get a movie role. A lot of stand-up comics become, stars. They become legitimate, stars of stage and screen.
Or at least they get on a Mayo commercial.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not in comics. There's nowhere really in comic books. There's really, we just do comic books. So it's a very insular, they call themselves a community, which is, don't ever, subscribe to that. That is the worst kind of emotional manipulation. This is a community. You're responsible for everyone in it. And it's like, no, I'm an artist and a contract agent that's out to make comic books for myself and, to support my family. I don't care about anyone else here. I mean, it's ridiculous. But in any case, all of this happened pretty quickly. They started to spread these rumors that I was Nazi. And then shortly thereafter, a bunch of writers got together at DC and said, we'll never work with him. So what are you going to do? Who's he going to work with? if not us? What's going to happen?
Do you know who exactly these people were? Do you know?
I've heard, like, I learned more and more about what happened. Like, everything was hitting me all at once. It was like death of a thousand cuts by a thousand cuts. Like, there were so many different aspects to my cancellation, that I learn more as time goes on. It's almost like stuff gets revealed to me. And I've learned some very sad realities and names of people that were involved in that I never would have thought. People who I was actually working with pretty closely. It was devastating. So I remember like February of 2018. And by this time I had discovered the YouTube community that was beginning to call itself Comicsgate, or it was being called Comicsgate. It was like a resistance to woke in comics. And they talked about this. They talked about cancel culture, and they talked about what they do to Republicans and what they're doing to these characters that they didn't create, how they're changing them and alternate. There seems to be a really strong and just overt agenda to use them for propaganda. And I was taught, I mean, again, when I started working at DC Comics, I got a talking to about, how important it was to protect these characters, how important it was to leave them better than you found them, because you didn't create them and they need to last another generation. And these people are overtly gender swapping them, race swapping them, putting their own petty neuroses into the mouths of super powered heroes and villains. It was nasty. So anyway, I started hanging out with that community while this was happening to me, because I found comfort in it. And I was like, this explains everything. And that made it even worse. I was actually threatened by a couple of professionals who said, you need to walk away from this. It's like, this is a bad look that you're hanging out with Comicsgate.
And who were these people like associated with Comicsgate at the time?
Oh, the good guys, Diversity in Comics, Richard C. Mayr. If you've ever watched his YouTube channel, if you watched him at the time, I would just say his name alone. He was leading the way. He was just a guy he was a veteran, a Marine, who took a iPhone and filmed a comic book in his lap in the car usually, and gave these great reviews. Chrissy, if you've never watched his videos,
wow,
you've got to watch his videos. He's incredibly entertaining, and you watch him, and even though it's so low tech, his thoughts they're on point. He influenced a lot of people in Hollywood, as it turns out, people who are going through this same kind of thing. All watch Diversity in Comics. He's now called Comics Matter with your boy Zach. But because of this one critic who had 40,000 subscribers at the time and was getting 35,000 views per video, which is more than a Marvel Comics sells. Imagine this. You've got a critic taking apart the agenda of Marvel Comics who is actually reaching more, like a bigger audience than the comics themselves have. They had to shut him down.
It's like what people do with critiquing CNN now. Like Tim Pool
they're freaking out.
Yeah.
I mean, CNN is actually freaking out over that. It's pretty interesting. But good. I'm glad, I'm glad there are people who are doing that, because I just find this agenda to be so insulting to the people who they're trying to reach, educate, entertain. It's so insulting, and people should stand up and say, shut up, Brian Stelter. Like that's my message, I think, to CNN would be just shut up, Don Lemon. Is Don Lemon on CNN or is it MSNBC?
I think so. Whatever. It's all the same shit. Yeah, they're pretty insufferable. Stelter looks just like a guy in a fat guy suit. He looks like a fat guy inside of a fat guy suit. And he just like there's no way that this guy is happy, like walking around living his life every day. You can just tell he's joyless, and
so much feminine energy in these men.
Too much. Yeah.
So much estrogen, and just like, it's really, really bad.
He's a soy man. Yeah.
Soy.
I can't believe he and I are the same age. It's just wild. But